What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Draft Rankings podcast. It's Monday, and I am Cody Carpentier. You can find me on Twitter at Cody Carpentier. This is the solo pod, and today it's going to be about 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to jump right into the quarterback position because on Friday this week, we're going to introduce a new show on the Draft Rankings podcast featuring myself, Matty Kiwoom, and Seth Dewald, where we will break down one quarterback each. We're going through the scouting process right now for our summer scouting, and we're jumping into the 2025 NFL draft class, and we're each going to take one quarterback in next year's class, and we're going to come to the table with all hands on deck, all the information we have, and we're going to discuss which quarterback belongs ahead of which quarterback we prefer, which quarterback we don't during the scouting process, post junior season or post, year before we're expected to go. So the likes of the Shedeur Sanders, the Carson Becks, the Cam Wards, Quinn Ewers, guys of this nature, Jackson Dart, we will each pick one guy. So there'll be three guys discussed on Friday, and we will come to the table with all hands on deck. You will not want to miss that episode. That'll be on Friday night on the Draft Rankings podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. But today, I'm going to discuss, first and foremost, where we have our cornerstone rankings. Our cornerstone rankings can be found over at thedraftrankings.com, and they now include the 2026 class. When you view this episode, you'll be able to find the quarterback rankings up. We're going to be releasing one position per day this week: quarterback on Monday, running back, receiver, tight end, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, throughout the week. I want to talk about the quarterbacks first and foremost. I'll talk about a few of them. You can find the rest of the rankings over there. Again, it's the 2023 class, 2024, 2025, and 2026. And this is all with fantasy football in mind. So, first and foremost, the top of the food chain is C.J. Stroud for both Matty and myself at the position in the 2023 class. In 2024, Matty has Caleb number 1. I have Caleb number 1. Overall in Cornerstone, Matty has Caleb number 1, CJ Stroud number 2. I have Stroud 1, and Arch Manning number 2. I have Arch Manning coming up. He just got entered in the 2026 class. I have him entered as the number 2 quarterback in fantasy terms. What I want is super flex. That's what it's kind of I'm inferring here. We don't have like scoring formats and shit for Cornerstone. It's just how you're inferring him for fantasy football, and that generally for me is super flex. Arch Manning, QB2 for me overall, followed by Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams coming in at quarterback 4. Again, Matty has Caleb at quarterback 1. Now, what I want to discuss is this 2025 class, and it's a drop-off. And the reason I brought up 2023 and 2024 right away was because that's the class that is most recent to us and is the comparable. So in our rankings now, guys we have in the 2023 and 2024 class, Stroud, like I mentioned, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis as top 12 guys, as well as Bryce Young bouncing in there for Matty. That's 4 guys in the 2023 class in the top 12. In the 2024 class, we have Caleb, we have J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May, all as top 12 quarterbacks. So that's 4 and 4. That's 8 quarterbacks. Arch Manning makes it in for both of us. It's Matty's 4th quarterback overall. My second. The 2025 class is where the rest of it fills in. We both have Nico, I'm going to butcher it, Imaleva from Tennessee as our top 12. So again, that's 4, 4, and 2. That's 10. It means there's only 2 more quarterbacks in our top 12 that are not from the 2023, 2024, and 2026 class. Right now, the quarterbacks we have from the 2025 class in this top 12, Shedeur Sanders, I have him as the 8th overall quarterback in these 4 classes. Matty has him as the 9th overall quarterback in these 4 classes. And Carson Beck, I have as the 10th quarterback. Matty has as the 13th quarterback. The other quarterback he has in this conversation in the 2025 class is Cam Ward. And where'd he go? Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe. Milroe is 10th overall for Matty. I just butchered that. I was trying to read that off. I read it wrong. He has Milroe as QB2, 10th overall. So those are his 2 guys, Shedeur and Milroe. Mine are Shedeur and Carson Beck in the top 12. So those are probably going to be the 3 names we discuss. when the week comes to the end. It's probably going to be Shedeur. It's probably going to be Carson Beck. And then it's either going to be Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, depending on who picks who. The point more so is the drop off at the quarterback position. We both released our way too early 2025 NFL mock drafts last week. You can find those over at thedraftrankings.com. You can find Maddie's at Player Profile. You can find mine at rosterwatch.com as well. And we both put Shedeur Sanders as a top 5 overall pick. I put him number 1. When I talked to Matty, he basically said, yeah, if my order was probably how it's going to end, he probably will be number 1. But he did the same order as 2024. The problem is that there's going to be a couple teams that are hyper QB needy. And when you look at the free agency market, Dak Prescott's likely the only one to hit free agency, as was like Kirk this year. Kirk Cousins goes to the Falcons. They needed a quarterback. Dak, you could see him going to the Raiders, for example. Well, that leaves a couple teams open. What happens if Geno Smith doesn't hit in Seattle? What happens if Daniel Jones doesn't hit with the Giants? There's multiple opportunities for quarterbacks to be needed in the NFL next year. So that puts Shedeur Sanders in that conversation. And he gets a lot of slack, or a lot of flack, I should say, for all of the off-field stuff and his attitude on the field and doing the whole watch thing and all the money he makes and having his dad named Dion and all this crap, right? But the bottom line is the class is weak, top to bottom. Carson Beck has prototypical NFL size, but we don't think he has top-end talent as far as making it to that tier 1, tier 2 area, which is a bona fide top 10 pick, right? We want to see it. I want to see him be the reason Georgia goes undefeated this year. That would be a reason to vault him into that number 1 spot. Again, they don't have the weaponry that a Burrow had, for example, a few years ago, which nobody really ever does. Quinn Ewers does. We could see Quinn, who also was in this class and was rumored to have 4th and 5th round considerations coming into the 2024 NFL draft class. Why did he go back to school? Because of that. That's what the rumor was anyway. And of course, Arch is still at Texas as well. Cameron Ward, who transferred from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami. He declared last year, came back at the last minute, transfers to Miami, gets a little bag. Now he has an opportunity with a top 10 receiving unit to vault himself into this conversation. Again, none of these guys, though, ring the bell as permanent number 1, permanent first round picks. Beck has the size. Shedeur has it between the ears, and he has the size. The talent, you could say Quinn Ewers has, but we haven't seen him really get to it. We haven't really seen him unleash it. Only a couple of times in college has he done that. Beating Alabama last year was one, for example. But he wasn't able to finish the season with that same pizzazz. Jalen Milroe, we saw him get benched last year, early part of the season, and then come back and lead that team to the college football playoff and be a play away from making it to the championship. But when you look at Milroe, to me, it's a lesser version of Justin Fields as an NFL prospect. I would rather take Fields on the ground and Fields in the air. And Milroe right now is not a first round quarterback. It's just not what he has. Now, if he goes back to Alabama this year and he throws for 3,000 yards and he rushes for 1,000 and he's accounted for 40 plus touchdowns and his accuracy jumps up 5-6 points, that'll be a different conversation. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him prove that he can be a consistent pocket passer. We haven't seen him prove that he is ultra dynamic in the rushing game like a Richardson or a Lamar Jackson of the last couple of years. Jackson Dart, again, another guy that's got a bevy of weapons now at Ole Miss through the transfer portal. Juice Wells comes over from South Carolina. They got Trey Harris. A bunch of weapons now at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is on paper potentially a top 3, top 4 team in the country, but a lot of it hinges on the quarterback. What is Jackson Dart going to be in 2025? You can ask the same question to Clemson. Clemson did not take a single player in the transfer portal in the spring period. But if you watch that spring game, it's a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. I think Dabo Swinney loves what he has on campus right now. And they're about a year or 2 away from being back maybe this year. If they feel like they're maybe a year away from really being back in the college football playoff. And I know now it's top 12. So when I say that, it's more so top 4 making it to the semifinals. But they feel like they're maybe not this year, but next year, a team that could potentially get to that college football semifinal. But if Cade Klubnik takes that step forward, which everyone expected him to do last year and he did not, he could jump into that conversation. As you can tell, as I keep going through these names, Shedeur, Carson Beck, Cameron Ward, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Cade Klubnik. None of these guys are first-round picks. It's just the bottom line. When you look at these guys as a whole, which one of these guys is a first-round pick? None of them are first-round picks based on what we saw in college last year. We got to play with a little bit of projection. So that's, again, why when you compare, and this is why I think the cornerstone rankings are so important, so that when you are going through your rookie drafts right now, or you are going through this in quotes dead period this summer between rookie drafts and the season beginning, you can understand where your team is at, where you're lacking, where you're aging, and where you can attack. When you're aging at the quarterback position and it's not aging well, say, for example, you have Russ and Rodgers, and you're not winning now, you're not going to probably have a good season. You should be looking to offload those assets like a Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers to teams that are trying to win. This is the Phillip Rivers, the Ben Roethlisberger situation from a few years ago. You're offloading these guys, but at what expense and for what? Should you be trying to offload these guys and give up future assets? Like, say you can give up Rodgers and multiple, picks to get up into that conversation? Sure. Again, this is not a fantasy show. This is just utilizing a tool to allow you to win and to also understand the classes. So when you look at the cornerstone rankings and how we have them broken down, Shedeur Sanders on average between myself and Matty comes in right around Will Levis in our 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026 cornerstone rankings. That is around quarterback 10, right around Will Levis. And then it's Noah Fafita from 2026 at Arizona, and Carson Beck comes in right after that, right between Levis and Drake May. Drake May gets a little drop because of averages. Matty has him 5. I have him 11, so he's about that 7.5 area. He comes down quite a bit. Cameron Ward comes in after that around quarterback 16. It's just the point is that at this stage, the quarterback class in 2025 is not as strong as it was even in 2024, 2023, or 20. I mean, it probably goes back to that. It goes back really to that Ritter, Pickett, Willis year. That's really what this class in totality does. This is something nobody wants to hear, but it needs to be understood that in 2025, we're facing this predicament unless Colorado goes 10-2. Shedeur is in the Heisman conversation. This is Carson Beck and Georgia going undefeated again, and Beck throws for 40 touchdowns. That changes everything. Quinn Ewers goes for 4,040 touchdowns. Texas goes undefeated. That changes everything, right? That's what we're looking for and hoping for. We're looking for the maturation of these guys. But right now, the 2025 class is a popped balloon. It's about to burst, and the burst is going to be, there really shouldn't be a first-round quarterback, which is exactly what that Pickett, Ritter, Willis, Howell year was. There really shouldn't have been a first-round quarterback, and Pickett barely made it in. There's a lot of hype, but nobody deserved it. That's where we're at right now. But the bottom line is when you're looking at it, Beck and Shedeur, Carson Beck from Georgia, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, are the two right now that do look like on paper, even if it's an average season, they will end up as first-round picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. Now, again, I'll be back on Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday, Matty will join me. We'll talk all things NFL Draft 2025. Maybe we'll talk about some prospects in the 2024 class and how they are going through their OTAs and rookie camps. We also have the NFL schedule coming out on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. We'll see what happens as far as scheduling for this show. Maybe we'll go live during that. Not sure yet. We'll figure that out when the time comes. And then Friday, of course, will be the 1v1v1, the showdown episode between myself, Matty, and Seth Dewald. I think if I'm going to have my pick, my first selection might just be Shedeur Sanders because I just had to talk about him on Friday. And I'm betting Matty picks Jackson Dart, and I would probably bet my money Seth picks Quinn Ewers. So I think we're going to be talking about Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, and Shadur Sanders on Friday for the Showdown episode. You do not want to miss it. Make sure you tune in, tap in, click that like button here on YouTube. Click subscribe if you would, please. It helps us continue to grow. Hit that 500 benchmark. That means a lot for YouTube. And again, we're just trying to continue to do this damn thing. So head on over to thedraftrankings.com. You can get the full cornerstone rankings, starting with quarterback on Monday, running back Tuesday, and receiver Wednesday, and tight ends Thursday. We appreciate you guys. We love you, and we'll see you on Wednesday.